when you called for the people of Iran to rise up, overthrow their government, what's going on there? They haven't done that. You expect them to.
You're dealing with thugs. You're dealing with horrible people. You're dealing with people that are violent and vicious, and that's the leadership and the people right under them, their military or their police. And they've notified everybody, and they put out statements that if you protest, you're going to be shot and killed. The protesters have no guns. And I know you're a brave person, but I don't think you'd be protesting. And so I think it's very hard for them to protest. I fully understand it. They said, if you protest, you will be killed. A week ago and 2 weeks ago, they killed 32,000 protesters. At least we think the number's much higher than that. They shot and killed 32,000 protesters who were greatly enthusiastic and want to see a change because they've destroyed the country. The people that are running have destroyed the country. But think of it, they shot and killed much more than 32,000 people. Now they put out a notice 2 days ago that we're going to shoot and kill any protester. And they don't have guns, meaning the protesters, they have no guns. So I can fully understand why they're not doing it. Oh, one other thing that was AI generated. They showed about 250,000 people in a square saying how much they love Khomeini. Totally AI generated. It never took place. The media knew it didn't take place, but they built it up like they have great support. They don't have support. And that whole rally that they had 3 days ago, 4 days ago, that they said was fake. It was AI generated. AI can be very dangerous. We have to be very careful with it. But the rally, because I was actually surprised to see, because I know how much the people hate this leadership.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to the first stream of this week on Monday, the 16th of March, 2026. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on Rumble. And special thanks to our moderator, Red Access, for being present today in the live chat. And I need to fix the webcam. It seems that it has to go a little bit that side. Yes, exactly. I mean, I'm not an American, but if I were, I would be really ashamed of having a president who is not only a liar, but also a dumb liar, a very foolish one. First of all, he called Iran a nation of vicious people. Like he really talked down to the Iranian people. Please remember, guys, that in the United States, as they say in the press, the majority of the Iranians in the diaspora are in support of the joint US-Israeli aggression against their own country. This is what they say in the press, right? So if this reporting is correct, then Donald Trump is basically humiliating a possible popular base among the Iranians in the diaspora in the United States and calling them a nation of vicious people. That's something, and I think that would definitely play against him. But at the same time, I have no expectations from the Pahlavis to listen to these words and see through what these politicians really think about them. That they are just a bunch of barbarians. This is how they see the West Asia and the Middle East. They think we are just a bunch of barbarians. We are killing each other day and night. We are disrespecting our women. They need freedom, right? They need the American type of freedom. They need our women to have the freedom probably to have their OnlyFans accounts. This is the type of freedom they aspire for our women, not the type of freedom which gives the women the opportunity to become whatever they like. And this is the case in Iran. They can become essentially anything and everything they like. In the scientific field, in the educational field, in the political field, in every aspect of life, they can become whatever they like, right? And there is a high percentage of female engineers, nuclear scientists, professors, educators in every public and private sector in Iran. And I would even go one step further and claim that women in Iran, in general, are much more educated and informed than women in the United States in general. And if you go to Iran and ask randomly 1,000 women in the streets to locate the United States of America or Canada or Germany or France or any other famous country, basically, who is active and relevant in the international political scene, I'm quite sure that the vast majority in Iran among women would be able to locate where the United States and all the other relevant players are located on the map, unlike in the United States, now that their own country is at war against another nation. If you show them the world map, how many women, random women, and random men, by the way, this has nothing to do with genders, could locate where Iran is located? Guys, I can assure you the vast majority would not be able to locate Iran on the map. Just imagine that members of the European Parliament were asked, and I will show you today during this stream a video of a citizen journalist innocently asking members of the European Parliament, those are MPs. So here is the map. Mr. Member of the Parliament, could you really locate where Iran is on the map? And they couldn't. And they couldn't. And these people are basically supposedly above us. And they're the ones taking decisions, or this is what we are believed. This is what we are told to believe. Anyways, today's stream is going to be very educational, and I'm going to reference several important articles were published today or yesterday. And I want to make also an announcement for you. Next Monday, so today is Monday, next Monday, the 23rd of March, Alistair Crook is going to be our guest on Syriana Analysis. I'm very humbled and honored by that. I have spoken today with his wife, and he wants to come to the show. This is the second time we would have him on Syriana Analysis. If you are looking forward to that, please, guys, hit the subscribe and subscribe to Syriana Analysis, like this stream. Unfortunately, today, I received 5 copyright claims by the Egyptian Radio and TV Union. So what the Egyptian Radio and TV Union is basically doing, they are going to my older streams and they're cherry picking few segments which I broadcasted on this YouTube channel. And I have the license of these videos, and those are not for the Egyptian TV outlet, but rather they are from the White House, they're from the Department of War, they're from the DOJ, etc. And they're hitting these videos with strikes and copyright strikes, telling YouTube that those videos belong to us because they are manipulating YouTube and they're trying to make money, generate money from this content, and trying to tell them that this is our originals. And thankfully, YouTube acted quickly, and I told them they're abusing this and they're trying to take down my channel. I don't know who is doing that, to be honest with you. Maybe he's even watching this person, whoever that person is now. They tried to take down this YouTube channel by these copyright strikes, which I'm very glad that YouTube was very quick to respond to me. And I told them that they're abusing this, and if they abuse this, they would be completely deplatformed. And I hope that YouTube would completely cancel them, because what they have tried to do is basically to cancel me based on false allegations. Anyways, this week something very important happened, guys. And I've been following David Sachs for quite some time. I'm not a fan of politicians. I'm not a fan of any crypto tsars. I'm not a fan, I don't really have some personal, let's say, opinions about them positively or negatively, but I follow their statements. I follow what they say in the press on X. Especially, I followed David Sachs during the Ukraine war, and he was one of the most enthusiasts in ending this war in Ukraine vis-a-vis Russia, and he was one of the people who promoted and advocated for peaceful settlement. I'm not saying he had good intentions, I don't know, but this is what he said in the press, right? And this week, apparently, David Sachs on his own YouTube podcast. And we have to know that David Sachs is one of Trump's close White House advisors. David Sachs called for the United States to find the off-ramp in its conflict with Iran. And this is basically the first public signal of discontent over the war from a senior figure in his administration. He said, I'm quoting him, "This is a good time to declare victory and get out," right? And he also said that such a move is clearly what the markets would like to see. So I think in this case, although he is not in the national security team of Donald Trump, but David Sachs represents, again, a trend among the MAGA movement. There are different pillars in the MAGA movement. One of them was David Sachs. The other one is Elon Musk. And then you have the Joe Rogans and all these podcasters. For example, Tucker Carlson, Kellen Maggie, if I'm not butchering her name, there were many, many of them, Candace Owens, who endorsed and supported the election of Donald Trump in these last elections. And then they have criticized Donald Trump and Donald Trump's war against Iran, which was, according to many reports and according also to my conviction, this was the war of Israel using the United States as its military stick against Iran. Now, today I received a direct message via Patreon. So the people who support me on Patreon can also DM me there. And one of the persons sent me this message and said that I have to consider the fact that the United States also has interests in Iran. And one of the reasons why the US has gone into war with Iran is the fact that they want to encircle China by trying to cut the flow of energy to China. So once the Americans take over the country, let's say hypothetically, they would cut the cheap and steady and reliable flow of energy resources and fuel to China. And I agree with that. And another reason for the Americans to get involved in Iran in this way is the fact that they need these energy resources also for the AI competition in the future. However, the Americans can literally and practically benefit from Iran and buy fuel from Iran and benefit from the Iranian fuel for the AI competition by simply cooperating with Iran, by simply trying to have good relationship with this country and buy and sell and deal with the Iranian leadership, with the Iranian government, with the Iranian energy sector. But the fact that they have chosen aggression and violence against Iran is an indication that Israel was involved in this, because the only reason Iran and the United States are on the opposite side and they have animosity among them is Israel. There is no other reason for the Iranians to be enemies with the Americans rather than that Iran is an enemy of Israel. And that's why they have built these advanced military bases in many of these Persian Gulf monarchies to protect Israel. Otherwise, if they pursue a different strategy, and that is the national interest of the United States, and cooperate with Iran and allow Iran to cooperate with the regional countries and lift the sanctions, then Iran will become the dominant power in the Middle East. And that goes against what the people call the Pax Judaica empire, or the aspiration of it in the region, because Israel wants to be the dominant player in the region. Imagine after 40 years of sanctions, 40 years of looting Iran's resources or blocking them from selling their resources, sanctioning every sector of them, waging against them psychological operations, media campaigns, wars of aggression, battles, proxy wars, sectarian tensions in the region, everything they have tried with Iran. And despite that, we can see Iran is not only standing, but also responding in, I would say, in a vicious manner. And I'm not being hyperbolic or trying to be negative about it, but even the Americans looked like they were surprised by the Iranian response against these Persian Gulf countries, which is, in my opinion, means they didn't listen to what the Iranian officials were saying, or they thought they were bluffing. So my argument is, despite all odds, Iran has made sure that it has enough military capability and also the brain and the development, the scientific development behind it. Guys, developing weapons is not easy. Firing rockets is not easy. Firing precision hypersonic missiles is not easy. Those are all very complicated manufacturing processes that require thousands and thousands and thousands of brains behind them, including operating nuclear facilities. Those are very difficult things to do, and without outside support, and I would say without outside big support for Iran, Iran has proven to be a nation of intellectuals, a nation of scientists, a nation of thinkers, a nation of strategists. It's a great nation. And when I say these things, Iranians should feel proud of themselves for having such a nation. Unlike the Syrians, where I come from, unfortunately speaking. So David Sachs says that the intervention from the intervention in Iran and this war is basically very counterproductive in a time when Trump is talking about fighting Iran forever. And this has basically prompted a backlash from prominent figures in his own MAGA coalition who voted for the president in part because he pledged to end forever wars. So Sachs, on his own podcast, he raised specific concerns about the consequences of further attacks by the US on such infrastructure. He means the energy infrastructure, including the prospect of nuclear war. He said, you are seeing a faction of people, I would say largely but not exclusively in the Republican Party, who want to escalate the war. If more Iranian energy infrastructure gets hit, they could continue to target the oil and gas infrastructure across the Gulf states. That would be a much worse outcome, added and concluded Sachs. And he believes that further escalation could render the Gulf almost uninhabitable. This is exactly what I said, guys, 2 weeks ago on this show, that this is a strategy of Iran. They want to make sure that these Gulf countries are losing the vision of safety or the pillar that they have sold to the outside world, this image that they are safe and stable countries, economically, financially. It's a safe haven for the entrepreneurs, safe haven for the multimillionaires and billionaires. It's safe haven for the investors, for the banking sectors, for the AI tech billionaires to come in Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Qatar and invest in these countries, generate huge amount of money, don't pay income taxes. Crypto bros moved to Dubai, they brought their wallets with them and they paid zero taxes. And it's easy, right? But all these things were built on a vision, on an image. And this image is not tangible. You can't really touch it because it's an idea. Unlike Iran, Iran is not a safe haven for these investors, by the way. I'm not saying that they are, but their nation and their country is built on a tangible pillar, and that is strong military capable of not only defending the country, but also to retaliate against such attacks in a way that they would tell the superpower, the United States, that your aggression against us has a price, and we will increase the retaliation to a level that you would not even think in the future to attack us again. That's the type of nation that Iran has built for its own people, for the Iranians. That's the difference between what Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and other Gulf monarchies have done. Basically, they have made their economies at the service of the foreign investors. You come here, Habibi, whoever you are, even if you're a criminal and you're running away from charges, bring your money and come and invest here, and we would accept you. But this was made possible through these foreign investors, unlike in Iran. Iran is based on its national economy and its national and the national interests of its own people. This is a huge and stark difference between the economic models in Iran and in the other Gulf countries. So what Sachs is basically saying is very correct, that he is worried about these Gulf countries becoming uninhabitable, and also especially in Saudi Arabia, by the way, and the UAE. And this would be a catastrophic scenario also for him, because David Sachs probably is also one of the investors. He's also one of the AI and crypto multi-billionaire. I don't know if he's a billionaire, he's a multi-hundred millionaire. What's the net worth of David Sachs? Let's check. Net worth of David Sachs. So bro owns how much? He owns around $2 billion. This is what they say. And some people say it's 200 million. I'm not sure if it's 200 million, to be honest. It should be way more than that. Yeah, in the billions. So this is the part. This is the segment. I will show you this video, which is important in my opinion.
Look, we've degraded Iranian capabilities massively. Their army, navy, air force all been destroyed.
So this is, remember guys, their navy and their air force has been destroyed is a talking point that I think it is, we have discussed this also with our dear friend Tarek last week. Iran's military deterrence and its military tools that are capable of deterring the enemy and responding against the enemy is not built on the navy or on the air force. It is built on its missile program. The ballistic and hypersonic missile program, its drone program, and its underwater drone program, right? Let them destroy the air force, which was not operational against any of these Gulf countries or operational against Israel, let alone the claim that this is even not factually correct, because the Iranians anticipated these attacks and they have hidden their fighter jets under the ground in bunkers. And the navies, you cannot really hide it, it's exposed, and they didn't even have a strong navy anyways. And despite that, they are still capable of destroying oil tankers and blocking the access in the Strait of Hormuz via the tankers or the ships which belong to the United States or Israel or the allied countries, which are conspiring against Iran or attacking against Iran directly or indirectly. So this claim, in my opinion, David Sachs knows this, right? But what he's trying to say is, we won the war. Let's give the impression that we won the war. Let's de-escalate and leave this. We destroyed their air force. We destroyed their navy. It's a happy ending. Let's leave, right? This is what he's trying to say, because this is what Trump wants to hear. If the media attacks him and the people around him, especially in the MAGA movement, keep attacking him that he has lost this war, he could double down. And this is the type of personality that Donald Trump has. You have to pet him like he is a nice guy and he has achieved an enormous victory in Iran, so that probably he would de-escalate in this case, right? So I think this is the platform that he's coming from. He's not an idiot. He knows that Iran's capabilities in terms of its missile, as I mentioned, missile, hypersonic, cruise missiles, and many other types of drones, for example, are still untouched.
This is a good time to declare victory and get out. And that is clearly what the markets would like to see. You are seeing, however, a faction of people, I'd say largely, but not exclusively in the Republican Party, who want to escalate the war and who are calling for things like ground troops or regime change, or they simply want the pounding of Iran to just keep going on and on. I saw an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal to that effect, that we shouldn't try and find an off-ramp. We should just keep going with this. And I just want to lay out, I think, some of the risks of what an escalatory approach could entail. So first of all, we're all seeing that the Straits of Hormuz are closed right now. We don't want that to persist longer than it has to. But there are actually worse outcomes than that.
So first things first, Strait of Hormuz is already worse. It's bad enough, but worse still, that he's going to mention a few examples, is, in my opinion, are very important.
So if the Iranians get hit, if their oil and gas infrastructure gets hit, they've already said they're going to engage in tit-for-tat retaliation against the Gulf states. And we saw there was recently the Iranians blew up this giant oil depot in Oman.
Yes, it
You
is.
saw some of those images.
Yeah.
They could continue to target the oil and gas infrastructure across the Gulf states. And if that happens, it won't really matter if the straits get reopened because you won't be able
I personally also didn't think about this, by the way. This is a great point here. Like, even if we open, he says, the Strait of Hormuz again, and this is technically, practically, in my opinion, unsustainable, and it is a mission impossible to impose a new reality there, you will need how many boots on the ground on the shores of Iran and also on the other side in the neighboring countries, and you will have all the time reconnaissance and surveillance drones. You will need warships. You will need multi-billion-dollar project to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and despite that, you will continuously come under drone attack from the Iranian side. So that's not the solution, by the way. But let's suppose, for an argument's sake, that they were able to open the Strait of Hormuz forcefully, and they would now allow the flow of fuel and energy resources once again from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the rest of these countries to the outside world, right? What happens if Iran starts firing on the energy resources in these countries and destroys them? So even if we open the Strait of Hormuz, there is still another way to stop the flow of the fuel to the outside world. And the Iranians are perfectly capable of doing that. I personally didn't anticipate that, but he's correct.
to restart oil and gas production in the Middle East. So that would be, I think, a much worse outcome that could result from escalation. Furthermore, there's an even worse, I think, scenario
This is also
from
very
there,
important.
which is the region is very dependent on desalination plants. I think something like 70% of Riyadh gets their water from desalination. I think it's something like 100 million people on the Arabian Peninsula that get their water from desal. I mean, it's basically a desert, right? And those desal plants are soft targets. You already saw I think there was one desal plant in Iran that got hit, and then it caused Iran again, tit for tat, to hit a desal plant. I think it was in Kuwait.
So this is also another important point we have already addressed on Syriana Analysis, the issue of the desalination water in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, and also in Qatar, the UAE, that they are dependent on these desalination plants in order to drink water. And if any of these facilities are hit, it's going to be a huge disaster. So definitely this is something to keep into consideration. One of our friends asked something, and I think I just wanted to answer. One thing I wonder is why attack Oman when they are so far the only ones supporting Iran? Why not the other Gulf countries? Actually, all the other Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia was hit many, many times. American bases in Saudi Arabia were hit. American assets in the UAE were hit. American assets in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in Qatar were hit. And American assets in Oman were hit because there is also military presence there, despite the fact that they are playing a mediator role, but they're hosting American forces there, so they're part of the equation here, right? So I think that's important also to take into consideration. So as we can see, guys, what they call the AI Tsar here, David Sachs, has made these surprising claims, this surprising criticism of Trump, but he went one step further, and this is something very important that I didn't personally anticipate, and that is concerning Israel. David Sachs basically warned that Israel is getting hit harder than they have ever been hit before in their entire history, and we are only 2 weeks into this. And he also said that if this war continues for, let's say, for a few weeks or months, then Israel could just be destroyed. So he's basically raising alarm not only about these Gulf countries, where I'm sure he has lots of investments there, but also about Israel, that they have been hit so hard, and there is a social media blackout there that the people outside of Israel aren't able to see the sheer destruction that is being inflicted on different cities, especially in Tel Aviv, for example. So David Sachs also here warned and said that he's worried that this type of escalation could lead to Israel using nuclear weapons against Iran. Like, imagine that this is something nowadays are being publicly spoken about in the press, and this is not something that is only coming from people who are critical of the Israeli foreign policies in the region, like us, and warning and saying that Israel could use a nuke. Israel could literally use a nuke or nukes against Iran. I have no doubt about that. But coming from someone like David Sachs is also has an additional political way, especially that this is coming at a very critical time in the United States that, at least in my lifetime, I haven't seen anti-Israeli sentiments, the normalization of anti-Israeli sentiments among huge sector of the right wing in the United States, and those are the MAGA base. Imagine if there hasn't been all these billions and billions of dollars that the Israel lobby, the Zionist lobby, and the American corporations and multi-billionaires. Imagine if they haven't spent all this money on media outlets, on podcasts, on social media platforms, buying social media platforms. Imagine the state of affairs of the public opinion in the United States and outside the United States, were it not for these multi-billionaires buying these platforms or bribing the media outlets and journalists to write basically or speak nicely about Israel or form positive public opinion about Israel. They would have lost the American public from the left to the right completely. This is what I would argue. Okay. Yes, I didn't hear the Iranian general, but I heard Ali Larijani telling the American people, we're not at war against you guys. If there is something of 9/11 sort happens in the US, this is definitely not us. This is what I saw in the press. And I would like to thank our friend Lucas from Brazil for his generous support. He says, lately your content has been awesome. Greetings from Brazil. Habibi, thank you so much. I'm trying to do my best on this show. As I said several times, this is a solo. I do the research, I do the preparation, all the technical things, the scheduling, the streaming, inviting guests, doing thumbnails, writing titles, everything. I do it myself. So if you like this stream, guys, or if you like the content I'm doing on Syriana Analysis, the easy thing to do, please just hit the like button, subscribe to Syriana Analysis. That would be great. So this is what he said about Israel. I wanted to show you also the video.
You also have to, I think, consider the impacts on Israel. I mean, it's hard to know exactly how much damage Israel is taking right now. There's a social media blackout, but what you're starting to hear trickle out is that Israel is getting hit harder than they've ever been hit before in their history. And we're only 2 weeks into this. If this war continues for weeks or months, then Israel could just be destroyed, or very large parts of it. Now, I think Israel is a harder target than the Gulf states. Their infrastructure is more hardened. Also, they're further away. The Gulf states are vulnerable to drones and short-range missiles, whereas Israel is mainly vulnerable to long-range missiles. Nonetheless, at some point, their air defenses could become exhausted if it hasn't happened already, and Israel could get seriously destroyed. And then you have to worry about Israel escalating the war by contemplating using a nuclear weapon, which would truly be catastrophic. You also have to, I think, consider the impacts.
So I think this has become now safe to say that Israel Israel's defense capabilities has been depleted, and were it not for the American direct support and the daily supply of weapons and the batteries and the air defenses, Israel has no capacity by itself to continue this war, right? And this is now being spoken by people like David Sachs, but not only David Sachs. David Sachs is still loyal to President Trump, but there are people with larger voices against Israel in this case, one of which is Tucker Carlson. And as you may know, guys, 2 days ago, I think this was on Saturday or Sunday, this Zionist asset, Laura Loomer, she has filed, I think, a complaint against Tucker Carlson at the DOJ, and the CIA spied on him. They learned that he's communicating with an Iranian official or Iranian officials. Maybe he was trying to schedule an interview with Iranian officials during this war. And now they're accusing him of high treason, like they're trying to put him in jail. Because as I said several times, the anti-Israeli voices in the right, in the US right wing, is way more dangerous than the anti-American voices in the left in the United States. All this investment in the American right wing, Christian Zionism and Christian evangelicals was built on the premise that our faith is closely and organically linked to our loyalty and obedience to Israel. Those who bless Israel, God will bless them, right? This is how they built an entire generation or 2 generations of people or 3 generations of people, basically, being blindly loyal to Israel based on ideology and supposed faith. And when people come, like Tucker Carlson, and try to destabilize this, I think this is very, very dangerous to the investment that the Zionist lobby has done in the United States. And that's why I believe they're coming after him now, because in the near future, he could nominate himself as the president, or he could participate in the presidential elections next. And Habibi Tucker Carlson, if you're listening to this stream, and if you need someone to advise you on the Middle East, your brother Kevork Almassian is here. You can count on me. I could be in your administration advising you on the Middle East. I swear to God, there would be peace prevailing in the Middle East. Not the peace that Donald Trump and Jared Kushner are trying to build on the corpses of hundreds of thousands of people, right? So as you can see, there is a big discussion nowadays about this right-wing scene in the United States, to the extent that this is coming from Haaretz, guys. Haaretz has titled this and said, "The Iran war shattered a taboo, unleashing the American right against Israel." So this is Israel's war. This is not the United States war. Tucker Carlson declared in his first television appearance after the countries launched a war against Iran. He had visited the White House 3 times in the month preceding the war in an attempt to persuade Trump to retract his support for the attack in Tehran. When that didn't work, he fired off a fierce denunciation of the war on his show, a declaration that it was evil and contrary to the principles of the MAGA movement, whose supporters constitute the electoral base of the president and the Republican Party. The Trump-Carlson clash is more than just another exchange of accusations between a politician and a commentator. The relations between supporters of the MAGA movement and Trump and the elite around him is currently facing its greatest test of the past decade. Carlson, for example, isn't alone in calling into question the foreign policy advocated by the White House. "No one should die for a foreign country," asserted the prominent right-wing journalist Megyn Kelly in her podcast. Even a close Trump ally, Steve Bannon, told his podcast audience, "I'm just going to be brutally frank, that the war with Iran was not pitched in the 2024 campaign. It just wasn't. We're going to bleed support." Matt Walsh from the popular right-wing site The Daily Wire urged his followers and fellow MAGA movement members to convey to the president the message that the war is not popular. "I can't take the gaslighting, guys. I really can't," he said. Bannon, Carlson, Kelly, and Walsh are not marginal figures. Together, they have more than 13 million registered subscribers on YouTube and tens of millions more followers on social media, especially on X. While Trump revels in his new status as a wartime president, America's right-wing elite has been plunged into a furious debate over the future of MAGA on the day after his administration ends. According to the polls, the Republicans will be badly mauled in this November's midterm elections. Afterward, as is typical in US politics, Trump will become a lame duck president as the party starts to rev up its engines ahead of the next presidential election in 2028. Already now, it looks as though the war in Iran has shifted discourse on the right in a way that presages what might be an emerging consensus. While differences of opinion between various camps on that part of the political spectrum haven't disappeared, when it comes to Israel's influence over American politics, some conclusions can already be drawn. Criticism of Israel is now is not new. 2 decades ago, Buchanan was Buchanan. Let me check again. He was a media personality and the former presidential candidate, Pat Buchanan. So he basically said or called for a cap to be placed on aid to Israel. And this is the founder of the American conservative magazine in the United States. Carlson ramped up that rhetoric in a radical way, recently calling for the United States to dissociate itself from Israel altogether. I think that's all what I have highlighted in this article, which is now, I'm sure the picture is very clear. We also discussed this with our friend Tarek last week, and these cracks that are very visible nowadays in the MAGA movement, which I would argue and say this is the end of MAGA itself. And if Donald Trump had any illusions of being re-elected, although that is against the American Constitution for the 3rd time, this is over for him. And the Zionist lobby in the United States is terrified by a candidate like probably Thomas Massie, probably Tucker Carlson. And I'm not saying that these people are like completely honest or politically are aligned with us. All I'm saying is what the Zionist lobby prefers is someone like Donald Trump, someone that they could compromise, or he was compromised in the past, someone who would get along with the business deals that the Zionists are doing in the Gulf countries. And also he has his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who is himself a real estate agent, basically, and trying to fix the Middle East through bombing and decimating entire cities and countries, killing tens of thousands of people, and then rebuilding this and making billions of dollars more profits. I think this type of business that the Zionist lobby prefers is the one that they prefer, as I said, and they would not prefer someone more ideological and more Christian like Tucker Carlson in this case, who would draw a line with Israel. I'm not saying he will antagonize Israel, but he would draw a line. What they want is complete freedom of access to the White House, to the office of the president. They want full access and full flexibility and full vulnerability in the American president that they could use and capitulate on and invest in order to pursue what they call nowadays a Pak-Judaica empire in the region. So I think in this case, it's quite clear why they hate someone like Tucker Carlson. And I would argue and say we should protect him. I personally would argue and say, as somebody who's not associated with any of the, let's say, political affiliations of Tucker Carlson, but people like him, in my opinion, are very important in the American political landscape in order to bring some balance, to the American foreign policy that has gone too far into the direction of, or in the direction of the Zionist. And the American, not even American, the AIPAC is not even American. It has become all Israeli lobby, This has become too much, even for the taste of people who have been supportive of Donald Trump. And that's why, in my opinion, these cracks have become too visible, and it's irreparable. You cannot really fix this now with a glue. You cannot really fix this through any promises for the future. The major big promise of Donald Trump of not going into war in the Middle East ever again has been violated, has been broken, and this has broken the trust among these, let's say, intellectual class of the MAGA movement, and they are now going to find a new candidate. And let's hope that this new candidate would be a little bit more honest with their audience and not another psyop who pretend to be anti-war and then come and fool everyone and laugh to everyone in their faces and go to another war. We cannot live but to have some hope, the least to say. So, In this case, guys, we have to also take into consideration, because we discussed what David Sachs has said, for example, about the interceptors, right? And this is an article published again 2 days ago. Basically, Israel itself is warning the United States that its supply of ballistic missiles interceptors is running dangerously low as its war on Iran enters its third week. This is according to US officials who spoke to Semaphore. And Semaphore is an intelligence magazine, apparently. It's an intelligence for the new world economy, and they have spoken exclusively to Semaphore, telling them that our interceptors against the ballistic missiles coming from Iran are running really, really low and dangerously low. So the Israeli defense systems entered this current conflict already depleted after last year's fighting with Iran, when large numbers of interceptors were used to block incoming missiles. Iran's sustained barrage has placed further strain on Israel's long-range air defense network. Reports indicate that Iran has also equipped some of its missiles with cluster munitions, complicating interception efforts and accelerating the depletion of Israel's stockpile. Now, this specific missile, which is equipped with cluster munitions, we've seen many videos on social media nowadays. I'm sure we have seen these. I'm sure we have seen these missiles are flying over Tel Aviv, and then it turns into like 80 cluster bomb looking like smaller rockets, and they go very fast down and they hit their targets. They were terrifying, right? I found I don't want to say nice, because I don't like to use nice to describe any weapons, but this is let's say, good description of this weapon, which I have seen on social media nowadays, and they're explaining this Iranian missile system, right? So 1 minute we will understand this weapon. It's a really simple explanation.
My name is Khorram Shaher 4. I cost $8 million, and when I arrive, I don't explode once. I explode 80 times! I'm Iran's most destructive ballistic missile. I carry a 1,500-kilogram warhead equivalent to the weight of a full-sized car. That's the heaviest payload in Iran's entire missile arsenal.
With a range of 2,000 kilometers, I travel at Mach 8 inside the atmosphere. That's around 9,800 kilometers per hour from Iran to Israel. 10 minutes.
But here's what most people don't know. At 7 kilometers above the target, I open up
And release up to 80 bomb bullets. They scatter over a radius of 8 kilometers.
air defenses can shoot me down.
But by then, the bombs are already falling. Each one is the size of a hand grenade. Too small for Patriot. Too many for Iron Dome.
I am also known by the name of K-Bar. By the time a radar sees me, they have 10 minutes. So, what do you think of me?
Follow war.
So, this is a type of missile, guys, that even though you fire an interceptor against it, it turns into 80 different munitions, and it goes with different, as you have seen in this video. I have seen many of them on social media, like not a depiction of it, but real ones. It's quite clear that the Iranians have studied this, and in order to evade and maneuver the interceptors that are really, really expensive, like if you want to send one ballistic missile, for example, that is one piece, and then if it's being hit, then the missile is already destroyed. But if the missile turns into different 80 different munitions, basically, or it's like a, I don't know, what do you call it? A cluster bomb? I'm not even a military expert. It's either a cluster bomb or different rockets that falls very fast. I think that would really drain the especially the Iron Dome that are meant for intercepting shorter rockets. And in this case, you would see that they are firing many of them, and they're depleting their basically air defenses. And sometimes when we watch the videos of interceptions, that there are none. Like, they're being hit without any interceptions being used. So sometimes it seems that also either the Israelis went out of stock of some of these batteries and interceptors, or they see the cost and value of intercepting some of these missiles and the targets that they've intended on hitting is not worthy of firing some of these multi-million-dollar worth of weapons against a weapon that costs way cheaper than what the interceptors cost, right? I know, guys, some people say it's not a cluster bomb. If you know the name of it, name it in the live chat. As I said, I'm not an expert on bombs, so I can't really tell you the name or what type of weapon is that. In any ways, this week, guys, in the Financial Times, I think Financial Times surprisingly is doing some good work in this war against Iran. How Iran's fightback surprised the United States. In the days leading up to the US and Israel's war against Iran, Iranian commanders repeatedly warned their foes to expect a ferocious and escalatory response. But the US appears to have underestimated the scale of Iran's response. Almost 2 weeks into the war, Tehran has spread the conflict across the oil-rich Gulf, brought the flow of oil and gas shipments through the Strait of Hormuz to a trickle, and sent global energy prices soaring. Former US officials and military experts said Iranian forces had been able to use a combination of intelligence, lessons from Russia, satellite imagery, and proximity to hit American bases, energy facilities, and other strategic targets across the Gulf. No one has done more with less than the Iranians, says Krumrich, former chief of staff at US SOCENT, the Special Forces Command responsible for operations in the Middle East. Iran has precise intelligence when it comes to not only where we are based, but a lot of our patterns of life and how we work as a military. Remember at the beginning of this stream, I said Iran, imagine after all these sanctions, they have built what they have built, and you can see it with your objective eyes. And this is what says Krumich is affirming here. He says, no one has done more with less than the Iranians. Iran has hit American embassies in Riyadh and Kuwait City, US bases across the region, airports, data centers, hotels, a desalination plant, ports and oil and gas facilities, as well as residential buildings. In preparation for this war, the Trump administration deployed the biggest military force in the Middle East since the 2003 US-led invasion of Iraq. But US air defenses were not created to deal with the threat posed by Iran's locally produced drones and missiles. US planners appear to have underestimated the threat posed by the drones, even though Russia has been using them in its war against Ukraine. Unlike ballistic missiles, the drones fly low and do not follow predictable trajectories. Analysts say they can skim close to the surface of the Gulf, reducing radar visibility, for example. And this is, by the way, a photo, as you can see, an Iranian Shahed drone hits the US naval base in Bahrain, and they completely obliterated them here. I'm checking if I have, yes, still. So Gulf states have relied largely on fighter jets and US air defense systems such as Patriot interceptors to stop the Shaheds. The risk is that their stocks for expensive interceptor missiles supplied by the US run low in a war of attrition. Analysts note that some of Iran's most advanced missiles and drones have not yet appeared in the conflict. And remember, this is what our friend Mohammad Marandi has said many, many times. Guys, like, we haven't even used the second most advanced weapons that we have in Iran. And some people thought that he's bluffing. And in this case, I think he had some information. And now in the Financial Times and their analysts are saying, yeah, that's correct. Iran hasn't yet used its most advanced missiles and drones in this case, something that is basically negating what Donald Trump has said, that they have completely obliterated their military, right? And these more advanced weapons include, by the way, the Qasem Basir. Qasem Basir is a hypersonic missile with optical guidance, although Iran is only believed to possess a small number. We don't know that. This is what the Financial Times says. It is thought to have a stock of jet-powered Shahed. And this is a newer version of drone that they have never used it yet in this war, called Shahed 238 drones, and those drones fly much faster. They fly at 550 kilometers per hour, compared with 185 kilometers per hour from the propeller-driven Shahed 136. Ahead of the war, Kane warned the White House about the risks of Washington being dragged into a protracted war, the complexity of the conflict and threats to American bases and personnel, according to US media. Trump, however, dismissed the reports at the time, saying his top commander believed it would be easily won. Who is his top commander? Is it Laura Loomer or one of these Zionist commentators around him? It's so funny. CENTCOM understood what the escalation scenarios were. Dana Shrule, she's a former official in the DoD, said, "It doesn't appear that President Trump and his inner circle fully grasped the escalation ladder and range of Iranian retaliation actions and what the US options were going to be to counter them." Well, it's not only Donald Trump. It's not only Donald Trump who is uninformed, who is foolish, who is not only a liar, but also a foolish liar, as I said at the beginning of this stream. Unfortunately speaking, there are many European politicians as foolish as Donald Trump. And as I promised you guys today, I'm going to show you a video which will definitely make you feel very uncomfortable, because these are members of European Parliament, basically unable to locate Iran or find Iran on the map. Take a look. You know, wait a second, wait. It's like you have this and you want to hit yourself. These people, by the way, they vote for foreign policy, they vote for sanctions, and also they try to preach, they try to educate us as the barbarians, the uneducated, unintellectual. Look, I expected this in the Congress, but I didn't expect this in the European Parliament. I'm just being very honest with you. I didn't expect this in the European Parliament, but here we are, guys. This is unfortunately in the European Parliament. As our moderator said, I thought Europeans were much smarter. I also thought that. I was wrong. And those are the people are trying to educate these people. Look at this woman, first of all. I'm sure if you just look at her, she doesn't look like she's a believer in the Islamic Revolution, and she's not adhering to the dress code. And it's quite clear she's not a regime apologist. She's not a mullah regime enthusiast or advocate. She just looks like, I don't know, a feminist Iranian wearing a kufiya. And then she basically left Europe for Iran. She was just in Europe before the war. And once the war erupted against her own nation, she left Europe for Iran. And this is what she said.
It's all about war against imperialists, because in this world you don't have the third option. You either have to fight with them or you have to be their slave. We choose not to be a slave, and that's why the struggle of Iranians, Palestinians, Lebanese, Syrians, we are all connected. It's the same thing. I was living in Europe. I came here the second day of war just to say that I'm here, I'm in my country, it's our land, and here will be your grave. Here will be the grave of anyone who has the plan of Big Israel. Big Israel will be Big Israel. Many people ask me, oh, you are going back to do what? And I said, it's not about doing what, it's about being there. I came here just to be, because me being here is a sense of solidarity that I'm standing with my people, and it's not like, oh, my people are being under bombardment. I'm just sitting in Europe on the on my sofa and reading the news. No, I couldn't do that.
I have heard similar statements from my Iranian friends. They told me exactly what this woman told me. Like they want to go back to Iran. Like they're studying here. They have their PhD studies here. They have jobs here. Their family here, and they want to go back now to Iran. And I ask him, why do you want to go to Iran? Like what can you do? You can do better from here. Be active on social media. No. I want to be there. I feel guilty. I want to be there because I want to suffer with the Iranian people. And I feel that I'm here living my lavish lifestyle, basically, away from the suffering of my people, and I want to suffer with them. I'm literally telling you what they told me. And this is what this woman is saying. Literally. Like, respect for the Iranian people. And respect, when I say respect for the Iranian people, I specifically mean the people who already identify themselves as Iranians, right? And the same thing, like with these Pahlavis, they really try so hard to try to act like, yeah, we Westerners, we're not from the Middle East, you know, like with their Persian accent, try to act like they are, oh, we white, you know. This is how they try to act. There is nothing wrong to be white. By why you're trying to be like, tell the Europeans and the Americans that you are not Iranian, like we're not from the Middle East, we're some other places, you know, like we are more civilized and more advanced than these barbarian Middle Easterners or Arabs or this is what they are trying to portray about themselves. Meanwhile, the people who identify themselves as Iranians, as Persians and others who belong to the Iranian nation, like they're speaking to me like this woman, literally. And I have met many people who hate the Iranian regime, between quotations, and people who are in the middle. They are not supportive of their government, but at the same time, they see that this is a war against their nation and they stand with their army. And then you have the supporters. So I think in this case, the 2/3 of the Iranian people are either supporting their nation now or they're standing with their nation in this joint war of aggression against their own country. This is my conclusion from this, guys. Let me know your experience with the Iranians in the diaspora. If you have met them, what did they tell you? What did they say about their time in Iran? Have they even lived in Iran? Because many of them were born in the outside, in the foreign countries. This is something that is really important that we could discuss. And good news, today, one of the Iranians who I have contacted, his name is Sharq Zeda. I will show you his profile. He's doing an amazing job, and he is an oppositionist to the current government in Iran, right? He's doing a great job in exposing these Pahlavists and how much they are basically anti-Iranian and they are trying to pretend to be Western or American. And he's doing great job, great job. And I'm not going to say that I envy these people, but I wish that I had, for example, half of his experience in how he deals with social media and how he gives a good impression and good image about his country. I hope that I had half the experience of Ali Zeda, for example, who is also giving a great impression and good image about his country. Back in the day in 2011, when the war started in my country, I personally learned the hard way. I have made horrible mistakes. I have moved from one place to another, mostly activism and not solid work until lately. But I was very young when it started, 22 years old, 23 years old. I didn't have all this, let's say, I don't even call now that I'm more experienced, let's say, than what I used to be in the past. But I wish that I had their experience and skills in how they are using and utilizing social media to basically tell the people the entire story in their own nation and in their own country. Respect for them for that. And respect to you guys for tuning in and your solidarity also with the people in Iran. It's very important. We wish them peace, of course, and for all the people in the Middle East and abroad, of course. If you like this stream, kindly hit the like button, guys, thumbs up, subscribe to Syriana Analysis. Still 40% of you aren't subscribed. Please check if you're subscribed or not. That would be amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you watch this on YouTube or on Rumble. And thank you so much, Red Access, for moderating the live chat. I will see you tomorrow, guys. If you like this content and you want to go one step further, only if you want and if you can, please become a patron. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. If you don't like using Patreon, there are different other means in the description below, and I will see you tomorrow. Salam.